Okay, I know exactly what's going wrong. You are not positioning yourself. You are underselling everything you have done. So we ended up getting her total, this is total compensation, okay? We ended up getting her to $324,000 total compensation.
Question for you. What are some blind spots that you're seeing in the job market?
Is like utilizing AI for like your learning your actual job and how to do it better. And number two is like learning how to self-reflect so that you can have awareness on what is it that I want to do next.
Hello and welcome back to the How to Get a Job podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Ellie Hochman, and I'm here with my fellow co-host, Daniel Botero. We also have an amazing guest for you today, one of the most down-to-earth and tell-it-to-you-straight coaches, Angela Lau, who is here with us, right? I said that right, Angela?
Yes, that's perfect.
Yes.
That's perfect.
Amazing. We're so excited to have you. We met in Orlando, and you actually gave me some of those pieces of advice and just kind of like sound bites that resonated with me after I left Orlando. You kind of resonate in my head every once in a while of just like how to be a badass. And I appreciate that so much about you. We're super excited to have you on, ask you some questions about your journey, as well as, how to get a job right now and what advice you have for our listeners for that. To get us started, Angela, could you share with us maybe your background and a little bit of your story and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited to be here with both of you today. It was so great meeting in Orlando. But yeah, a little bit about me. So I'm a career coach. I've been on my own in my own business for the last 2 going on 3 years now. But I started off in a totally different area. Straight out of college, I was recruited into a big four firm. I worked at PwC, and I was doing public accounting. And there I did the very typical thing where I worked 60, 80 hours a week. And I was up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so I saw all of my friends who were working in tech and startups and just like this really fun area. And so shortly after like a year there, I knew I wanted to make the jump and move into tech. And so that was the first pivot that I made. I ended up landing a analyst role at a company called Stitch Fix. And that was like such a great experience because it gave me the exposure into tech, what it was like to work with data scientists, engineers, and things like that. I PO'd with them and then joined Lyft as a business analyst. IPO'd with them as well before just kind of taking a step back and feeling like, okay, I've done this tech thing, I've explored it. However, I kind of got everything I wanted and I wasn't happy, which was weird. It was a weird feeling, which is what made me really start to craft out like, what does my ideal life and career look like? I went off and started entrepreneurship. I sold houseplants for a minute before coming back into tech, working at a small tech startup as a career coach. That's when I really verified my hypothesis that I was good at finding a job, not just for me, but for other people as well. And I also loved the process. And through that job, that's when I realized, wow, maybe I can like do this on my own. And so that's what I've been doing now for a couple of years. And I've now helped over 66 professionals get new jobs. I've helped to generate, I think it's like $8.2 million of income. So it's something I'm really, really passionate about. And I'm excited to talk about it with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We're super excited as well. And Daniel, if you don't mind, I want to jump in and talk about those 66 success stories. That is absolutely incredible given how long you've been doing this and how hands-on you are with your clients. Like if you were like doing like a group program and you met with them one time, then 66 success stories would be like, okay, but with how hands-on you are, it's incredibly impressive. I'd love for you to share with us, do you maybe have like a recent or a standout transformation story that comes to mind that you want to share with us with one of your clients?
Yeah. So one of my clients that I'll always remember is working with she's a mother, and she had, been working in tech for about like 10 years before taking a step back from full-time work so that she can take care of her family. She had young children at the time. And when she came to me, it was probably like fast forward like 8, 9, 10 years, right? Her kids were very much in school, and she wanted to prioritize her career again, but she had this massive gap. She had taken some contracting roles, so it wasn't like she was completely out of the workforce. She had some part-time things, but that clearly just like shot her confidence, right? So she had been working in like big tech companies, like we're talking IBM, Microsoft, things like that. And as she approached her job search on her own, she was like, I can't even seem to get any of these companies to talk to me. And when we first started working together, it was clear it wasn't the fact that she had a lack of experience. Even though she had taken some time off to prioritize her family, she had still been doing stuff. She had been actually contracting for Microsoft because she had connections there. So she had like a network. But like the fact that she couldn't even get interviews was like a wild concept to me, because I'm like, you clearly have the experience, you have the connections. I think it's something else. I think it's positioning. I think it's probably the way that you're talking about yourself. When we first started working together, I looked at her resume. I did like a very brief, like, tell me about yourself, like mock interview. And within probably like 10, 15 minutes, I was like, okay, I know exactly what's going wrong. You are not positioning yourself. You are underselling everything you have done, because in her own head, the story she was telling herself was, I'm just a mom. I haven't been in a full time role for 8 years. How can I possibly get this? But it had nothing to do with the fact that she lacked achievements. She just buried them in a bunch of like words to try to really overcompensate for her feeling like, I haven't prioritized my work life in my life. And so once we started working together, first, like, yes, Ellie, you're so right about I'm so hands on with my clients, because I was like, let's actually just dive deep into like 5, 6 bullets and like tell me exactly what did you do? What happened here? Because whatever you wrote, it would be like these very just like jargon high level words. So for example, it would be like um, led a team to oversee a project that was launched in a region. Like that's saying nothing. We've said nothing there, okay? And so when we really dug into it, she started to see like, oh wow, I have done things. I have had achievements. I've had wins. And then we started crafting out like interview stories for each bullet that she had on her resume. And I mean, I can talk you through the whole career coaching process, but like, let me cut to the end of like the results. Okay. Her main goal, I remember cause she had experience, and she was aiming for at least like 150K, which I was like, very doable. Like, this is a wild idea that this is your goal, because you should probably aim higher for like a program management role in big tech. And so the offer she ended up getting was like $212,000. Great, right? Beyond what she even wanted. But I was like, again, I just knew for the level that she was at, we could ask for more. And this was at the time when tech companies were just shelling out money. And so like I knew from working with other clients that like there was more money to be had. And so we ended up getting her total, this is total compensation, okay? We ended up getting her to $324,000 total compensation. Okay. So she now has a lake house. She now is able to support her family. And she was just like, I think the biggest transformation there, obviously the dollars are huge, right? But the biggest transformation was her confidence. Like the way that she came in, she was just like the tiny dot version of herself. And by the time we were done and like she got the offer, she just like blossomed and really came into herself. So that was like my forever biggest success story, just because of the big transformation in the way that she talked about herself.
Mm-hmm.
I that's awesome. Like that is such a life changing like investment for her by working with you. And I know that you have so many dozens of more of that. I actually have a follow up question on that because you were talking about how um, she definitely has some blind spots and some imposter syndrome on it. But in your experience, what would you say are an additional 1 to 3 other blind spots that you commonly see job seekers make, specifically in the last couple of in like in the 2025?
Um, so like in terms of blind spots, one is definitely like I think I like to always say that like the job search should be like a work project. It should not. You should as much as possible not be emotionally entangled in it. Easier said than done because obviously this is your life, right? And so what happens when people start to get a bit desperate simply is that they start to be like, oh, who cares what I want? What job can I get? And then they start applying to like a million other jobs. Like you start off with a data analyst. Now suddenly you're down like a program management, finance analyst route, which is
Mm-hmm.
very different than a data analyst, right? That's blind spot one is like feeling like, oh, can I really get this job or should I widen the net more? And people generally go down widening the net. So that's one of them. Number two blind spot I would say is that um, folks really underestimate how being very clear on like what is it that you want to aim for, how the clarity there actually helps you be a better top candidate,
Mm-hmm.
because that is the issue when you try to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. I think that's a very common just like marketing strategy, an
Mm-hmm.
idea. And at the end of the day, in a job search, you're marketing yourself. You are the product here that you need to market. And I would say the third blind spot is that um, I think the third blind spot is that folks like in terms of getting like income and their what should they be targeting for what amount should they be getting, they kind of just leave it up to let's see what the market says about me, let's see like what happens here. But in reality I think people actually have a lot more control over that than they think. And what I mean by that is that they can do some more research. Just straight up, like now, a lot of states require companies to state what's the salary here. So you can already find out that information yourself versus anchoring yourself to what you used to get paid. Right? I think too many people do that of like, oh well, I'm currently getting paid like $70,000. Maybe the next job I can get is like $80,000. That's a like I think that's a very bad assumption to operate under. You're better off seeing what is the market like, what are the salaries out there,
Yeah.
and how can I make myself a top candidate for that.
What's super interesting about what you're sharing is that those three blind spots that you're sharing have one main thing in common is that the job seeker doesn't know what they don't know because they're only looking for a job, let's say hopefully once every couple of years, if every 5 to 10 years, or on a worst case scenario like job seeking uh, once a year or every other year. And even at that point they're only seeing the job market from one point of view. And I think the value that like you gave to your other client is you have a broader view of what the market is from your just experience and as a recruiter and experience from making all those pivots that you made in your career. And so you know what the market value for that particular talent is. You know what are the right industries or companies to apply for, and then you're able to just guide him through the path. So the job seeker is the hero and you're the guide, and it's super powerful. And I think that's like, to me, one of the biggest benefits of a career coach is like it's like you're like the talent agent, and you've never met a professional athlete or even a celebrity who doesn't have an agent who's like guiding them. I'm like, you should ask more for in your contract because here's 3 different examples of 3 other athletes in your position who just negotiated more, right? And I think that's super powerful. And Ellie, quick question for you: what are some blind spots that you're seeing in the job market?
Hmm. blind spots I'm seeing in the job market are actually, I feel like Angela really hit the nail on the head of like not knowing, and you too, you don't know what you don't know. Like you don't know what salaries are available out there. So, you just base it off of your previous salary. You don't know what jobs are available out there. There's often like a visibility problem and this is more kind of in the career clarity of like, I'm just going to do what I've always done and not actually explore if there's other options out there for me that might be better for me. I think another blind spot as well is thinking that we're in the same market that we were 5 years ago, and it's going to be easy to find a job. I've talked to a couple of job seekers lately who have said things like, "I've never struggled to find a job before. So this is really, I don't get it. Like, why am I struggling to find a job right now? Like I've always been able to find one." And so it's just not knowing how competitive the market is. And I think that also too, like when we have more layoffs or, changes within industry, that only becomes more and more apparent. So I would say that those are maybe some blind spots we're seeing right now that come to mind. But I also think Angela hit the nail on the head too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that, Ellie, because I think the other part of it is that candidates right now, because it is such an employer's market, they kind of feel like out of control. Like I have no control in this. And I just really want to pop that idea because it's just not true. I think with all of this is that career clarity is even more important now than ever before, because if you just throw yourself out there to be like, let's see what I catch, you're not going to catch anything. Simply, you're not going to catch anything because like people are looking for certain things. And so that's why you're much better off with you choosing first and then figuring out how can I show up as a top candidate for that. So that when you're out there being a fish, companies are like, oh my God, this fish is exactly what I'm looking for. It's the exact salmon, the exact size of like what this role is going to be doing.
Absolutely. 100%. I often think about that of like what's within your control and what's outside of your control. And what I'm finding right now is like the people who are getting jobs are the people who are the most persistent. Like if you're kind of like half in, half out on your job search, like it's not likely. It's really the people who are like, I'm persistent. I'm following up. I'm letting you know I'm interested. I'm sending you a proposal after our interview. Like it's those people that are actually getting offers right now. Persistence is everything in every market, in every industry. Like that is what I'm seeing. It's persistence. Yeah. Angela, also one thing I saw in your LinkedIn profile, this is in your About Me section, that you're a reader. Daniel and I are big readers. You can see all Daniel's books behind him if you're watching us on video. I don't have my books behind me. They're actually all in front of me. But I want to know, Angela, what are you reading right now, and what do you learn, and what have you learned from what you're reading?
Yeah, so gosh, I probably haven't updated my About section in a minute. So whatever I said I was reading, like I'm probably beyond that.
That is what I figured.
Okay. So I will share that right now. I just finished rereading The Alchemist, which is a book that I never read in high school. It was required reading. I will tell you, I read the Cliff Note version back in high school, even though this book is tiny. Okay. But now as an adult, this is a book I try to read every single year. And the reason being is that, well, I love that it's a story. And it really helps me to just like reframe myself, but also help my clients reframe their journey in their job search. Because sometimes you might feel like you're on this whole path and then you end up in the same place, but like you're never in the same place because you have experience, right? And so because you have experience, you just approach things with a whole other perspective. And that's something that I definitely know I need a reminder of because I'm a human. And I know that my clients oftentimes need a reminder of, especially my pivoters who are always like, I'm starting over from nothing. Like, is this really what I should do? And the reality is like, you're never starting over from nothing because you compared to you 5 years ago is still completely different person, you probably approach conversations with managers, conversations with external stakeholders very, very differently than 5 years ago, even if you're trying to go into something new. So that's what I'm reading right now. How about you guys?
I am actually, I'll take this one, reading a book called Main Street Millionaire by Cody Sanchez. And I
Gotta
am
love Cody.
really obsessed of the idea of being an owner, aside from just like being like the owner of Omni, because I founded Omni, but investing in, let's say, boring businesses. And so you find me, I invested in a gym last November. Funny enough, as we record this today, my business partner from that gym is in Colombia. He's here spending a week with me. Um, so we're deep diving into like kind of more strategies, and we've been able to double the revenue of the gym in 3 months. So it is awesome. And so now I'm obsessed. Yesterday I have this like 19-year-old kid who's been washing my car for 2 years. So right, so he has his car washing business 2 years ago. He now has a van. He has an LLC. He's his first year, and I'm like, hey, Sebastian, any interest in like scaling this up? Like, so I'm over here trying to like invest in his business. Sebastian's great. And tomorrow my cleaning lady's coming. So I'm like, hey, Margarita, want to start a cleaning business? Like, and so, yeah, if you know me, once I get into something, I get obsessed with it. And
Yeah.
so that's what I'm reading. And not only reading, I'm applying it. And so, but invested in my first brick and mortar business, is crushing it. I low key trying to buy out. There's like this like veterinarian group that owns 30% of the gym. I'm like trying to. I've already offered to buy their 30%. So
It's the next
Interesting.
Alex Hormozy here.
Truly.
Gym
I
launch.
am just a minority owner. Somebody else is the operator. The operator is actually in the other room. Yeah, I just once a week have a call. We talk about the numbers. We talk about what's going, and their their job is to execute.
Nice. I'm on a little bit of a nonfiction break at the moment. I find that if I read too much nonfiction, I've got too much going on and too many focuses sometimes if I'm just going back to back. So I like to do like a nonfiction and then a fiction and then nonfiction and a fiction. So right now I'm actually reading James, which is the retelling of the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, but from Jim's perspective. And, you know, what I like about mixing up my nonfiction and my fiction is not only like the entertainment and the relaxation that I get from reading fiction, but also I often learn a lot about like the way that people think about the world. Like I'm learning a lot about like slavery and like things that I did not know before just from this book. So I think that often too, like we can also find a lot of value in fiction and entertainment. I'm watching Severance right now as well. And I'm taking lessons from Severance and like applying them into my life as well, even though that is also a fictional, entertainment, you know, thing. So yeah, I'm looking for my next kind of like nonfiction or inspirational. And I've heard of The Alchemist multiple times, but I just wrote it down. I think I'm going to finally go ahead and give that one a go.
Yeah, that's a great book. From there, soft pivot the conversation to we're talking about reading to learn skills, right? Like it's the main reason why I read a lot. And Angela, I'm curious to like get your perspective on what would you say are some of the skills that are important for job seekers to learn in 2025?
Um, okay, a couple things. One is like you've heard this a million times. The second one is going to be like something that I stand on a soapbox all the time talking about. Start with the first one. First one, I definitely think it's very important for folks to learn how to utilize AI. I know, basic, annoying, but like it's just so true. Like learning how to write prompts with Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, pick any of them, okay? But really making sure that you know how to use it and for the field that you're in is so, so important. Whether it's you are in marketing and you want it to help you write copy or edit your copy, making sure that you know, hey, in order to use AI to the best, I need to give it a role. Hey, you are a copy editor. and you have 50 years of experience doing this, make sure to utilize SEO rich language to increase open rates. Like, this is your mission. Doing that is just like so key for that, or even in the technical side, right? For folks who are in analytics and they need help with like writing SQL, Python, like making sure that you're like, hey, act as a data analyst who uses SQL every single day. Like, this is how, like, I think people get so scared of like, I've even had people be like, our engineer is going to be necessary, our data analyst is going to be necessary. The reality is, like, I remember, I think it was in Australia, like this lawyer who got in so much trouble because in whatever contract they wrote, it was clear that like they did not remove the ChatGPT language from it. They use that, right? So humans are needed to make sure that this stuff is accurate, but that is a skill to help you be straight up better at what you do. And then two, help you be able to learn more quickly. And so the skill gap that you might have between what you're doing now and what you want to do, the time it takes to bridge that gap should be a lot faster now if you utilize AI well to help and assist you in that learning. So that's like one aspect of it. Second aspect is like, I think a big part, like a big skill that I would love all job seekers to start learning is like the ability to have like self-reflection and therefore self-awareness around what is it that you want, because that is actually the biggest asset you can have to make your job search way faster. The people who have no sense and no idea, that's when it's going to take a long time, because you're constantly rebranding yourself for every job you apply to. If you do that, it's going to take you, I will tell you, 10 times faster, because simply you're not going to show up as a top candidate. You're going to get burnt out because you send out a lot of different applications, and you'll end up like one of these people who are like, I applied to 10,000 jobs and I heard nothing at all back. And there's probably a reason why you should have stopped at maybe like, I don't know, 500 or even less than that to see, is there any more clarity I can add to my strategy here? So if I had to really boil it down, it'd be to those two. One is like utilizing AI for like your learning your actual job and how to do it better. And number two is like learning how to self-reflect so that you can have awareness on what is it that I want to do next.
Yeah.
I have a question, because you work with marketing and analytics professionals specifically. Do you ever use any of that either marketing skill set or analytical skill set to help your clients? For example, if they need to self-market themselves or if they need to analyze the results that they've had so far, like, are they using those skills as they're job searching too?
100%. 100%. I would say that like the system I use in my program is like very data driven, right? So I give every client like, hey, this is your minimum sample size for us to know, is this experiment working or not? Is this type of like copy that you're using to send networking messages, after you send these many out, this is how we know, did it work or did it not? Do we need to change who you're targeting, or do we need to change the copy of your message, right? And so that in itself is all marketing and analytics all in one. And so we're doing that all the time, because to me, the whole job search is a marketing project. That's what it is, the entire thing. And the best way to optimize for it is like tracking and collecting data and then analyzing it to see, is this working or is it not? And I think that's the part that my clients really love, is that they get to just get plugged into the system of like, this is how we do it. This is how I know you reached this number, you got nothing. Well, then we need to try something else. These are the variables we can change. Versus when you're on your own, you just get really into it. Then you get bogged down by emotion. I feel crappy about myself now. And then you don't do anything, or you're like in depression.
And I think that's why I think it's so cool that you offer services to these people. And I'll actually reflect it on my own of like, I had a big limiting belief for a long time when I decided to focus on IO professionals. My thought was, well, IO professionals, like, they really understand the psychology of job searching and finding candidates, because like talent acquisition is one of the things that we talk about in our master's programs. And so I had this limiting belief that like those job seekers don't actually need my help. And so then there might be a limiting belief of like, oh, well, if someone's good at marketing, then they might not need a coach because they're good at marketing, so they should be able to market themselves. But what I've come to find, both within IO and marketing, and really any niche, you can always, find a reason that someone wouldn't need help. It becomes completely different when the product is you, and I think it's exactly what you're talking about, because then the emotions come in and it makes it so much harder. And so that's why having a coach and community to support you is so critical for helping you actually land a role, because even the best marketers, they might be incredible at marketing a product or a service, but when it comes to marketing themselves, the emotions get in the way, and so you help them with that, and I think that's awesome.
It's such a full circle moment there, because job seekers get very emotional about the process, and they, like, of course, totally understand, especially if you've been in the job market for a long time. It's an emotional roller coaster. And so you let this be a very emotional process, but in reality, it is actually a marketing funnel, and you need to understand what are the inputs that are required on the top, right, to be able to generate the right output. And if you think that just by applying to 1,000 companies, especially now there's AI tools that will apply for you, think that's going to generate the sale or the job offer, you're wrong, because if you're targeting the wrong companies, that's not working. And so it's like, it is a very systematic of like, get clarity of what you want to do, and then you understand that how you market yourself, your resume, your LinkedIn, your cover letter, right? And then you ultimately need to gain visibility, which is where networking plays a big part of it. Then you have to show your value and say, here's the features and the benefits, or here's why I'm the right product to make the decision. And then you go into salary negotiation, which you're just negotiating right price. And so it's so cool. You hear that, like, when you were talking about it, it was like music to my ears of like, of course, like, no wonder you have 66 success stories in such a short amount of time. It makes total sense.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like also using the language that folks use like at work when I talk about their job search also helps to just kind of like make it, okay, this is my job search and then this is me. And I'm just like trying to see what's working and what's not. Is it always like that? No, but it helps. It helps to kind of like distance yourself from it. And I think that's the nice thing about having a coach, is that when you get too emotional, like, I'll validate your feelings and I'm here to hear it out. But then I'm like, let's reframe this, because I think you're taking it too personal. And it's hard to do that when it's on your own, simply. And it's nice to just get some perspective.
Yeah. Angela, for individuals listening to this podcast and they want to learn more about what you do and your services, can you tell us a little bit more about like what your coaching program is about, and what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So, my coaching program is specifically designed for folks who are, mid-senior level, have some experience under their belt, and really wanting to take that next step to make at least over 100K, if not 150K. And the entire program is really like, just like Ellie said at the top, I'm really invested with all of my clients. And so I like a very hands on, like almost like hand holding process of like, okay, let's go into the resume together. Let me write some bullets. Let me ask you some questions. Let's like, for your interview stories, let's actually do mock interviews and actually get feedback, versus in a real interview, none of that's ever going to happen. Right. And so it's really end to end. And of course, like we've talked a lot about money on here. Making money and optimizing the offer that candidates end up accepting, that's like one of my biggest passions, because I know for a fact that this is going to be the biggest raise that you can get. Because once you get into the actual company, it's going to be like 5%. If
Best
that,
case scenario.
that's like a
Yeah.
best case scenario.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Best, inflation is what you're expecting. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm like, all of this is really leading up to how can we make sure you're a top candidate? We can maximize the offer you're going to accept. And so that's why I love doing the entire journey with
Yeah.
candidates, because I know for a fact your interview is your biggest leverage to negotiate the most amount of money. And so if I'm not in there from the get go, I can't really make sure that you get that 100K plus job. So that's kind of a bit of an overview in my program. For folks who are in marketing analytics, a bit of that mid-senior, have a couple years under your belt, maybe graduating from like a master's in analytics, had a couple internships. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Angela Lau, Lau. I post there every day. I respond to DMs every single day. And just shoot me a DM me stuck, and we'll see if we can get a call and if it's a good fit.
Awesome. And I know you also have a free webinar as well on your LinkedIn too. So folks, make sure to take a look at that as well if you're a good fit for that. Angela, we really appreciate having you on. And folks, for you listening, if you are liking this and you are getting value out of this, I want to say thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself for a couple of minutes here and focus on your job search. We've talked a lot about how it's a very personal process. And so I want to give kudos to you for listening. If you want to keep this going and you want to help us out, make sure to like and subscribe. That's going to help us bring on even more career coaches who are awesome, just like Angela, our friend here. We are so thankful for your listenership and your support. So like and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.